days at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way, from off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers Cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback Podcast time. Welcome to the show. Threw a little zinger at Alex there right before the episode started.
I think you said the one name that might actually be worse than Josh Rosen.
Paxton Lynch, yeah.
It's pretty bad.
We're watching the opening, roll through, and we're looking at Jimmy Garoppolo and realizing, he's probably going to be gone.
We are definitely changing that intro.
So that's going to have to change. And Alex said, we're kind of going through it. Is it going to be Trey Lance? Is it going to be Tom Brady? And Alex goes, what about Aaron Rodgers? Said, what about Paxton Lynch, huh?
I think the point you were trying to make is they have about the same amount of chance.
There you go.
Of ending up in San Francisco. And speaking of chances to end up in San Francisco, we've been talking a lot about the free agents. In fact, before we took our nice 3-week break, we gave you a list of all the 49ers free agents. Who are the guys hitting the market and who we thought, were guys that potentially could come back. And PFF, since that long list that we put out of 49ers players and hitting the free agency market, you're welcome, Cutback Crew, has since put out their top 200 free agents, and not just top 200 free agents, their top 200 free agents and which of those guys, what their value is, essentially. Yeah. So of those 200, what 49ers names made the list? And if they made the list, what does PFF think their market value is going to be heading into free agency? So make sure you hit the like button right now, smash that thing into oblivion, and if this is your first time on the channel, hit the subscribe button. Because if you want to know more about the 49ers and their free agents and who they could re-sign and what guys they may target, which is coming, we are going to talk about it, don't you worry about it, then you're not going to want to miss any of it. And the best way to do that is to subscribe to the channel right now and hit that notification bell. That way you don't miss anything. But let's start with the first name on the list. The first name on the list for this wonderful, wonderful team. This wonderful situation here was Laken Tomlinson, Anton. What did PFF have their value ranked out as?
Oh, the 49ers would have to sign this guy for 3 years at $27 million, $9 million a year, and over $16 million guaranteed. So I've heard this kind of mentioned. I think it's a good idea to get, a perspective that is not, inside 49ers land. I've heard Matt Mayoko talking about it, and he had kind of said, Laken Tomlinson, $9-10 million a year was something that was believed to be his value. And now PFF is going along the same way, including that maybe he's the best guard in free agency. If he's the top guard in free agency,
he is getting $9 million.
He could be getting $9 million. And a team like Cincinnati with a lot of cap space, a team like Miami with a lot of cap space, might come calling Laken Tomlinson. I believe he'd like to come back. But Alex, can we afford to bring back Laken Tomlinson on a 3-year deal at $27 million? Is this something that you think is a possibility? I made a stance on this. If you've already watched our offensive line video, yeah. I've kind of taken a stance on this. So, Alex, what are you thinking about this now that numbers are kind of coming out what it could possibly be?
My gut is no. Right? My gut's like, this is not happening. At $9 million a year, $16.5 million guaranteed. That essentially means in the first 2 years of his contract, you're paying this guy out, and then after that, the money is, it's all incentives and bonuses and things like that. So it may not pay out your way. It may.
Could you backload it?
You might be able to backload it. You might be able to, make the money light early and then pay him out deep later on. But there's other guys that you're paying deep later on as well. It becomes very difficult to do this. And also makes it difficult to maybe sign some more free agents and other guys. Potentially, you would think, right? You would think you'd not be able to pay Laken Tomlinson $9 million a year and eat up almost 50% of the money that you're getting back from Jimmy Garoppolo in order to pay an offensive lineman that much money. Then again, I could be wrong. Right? We could be wrong in this sense, and that's just not the case at all. Not going to happen. And the Niners can easily do it. Is there some cap gymnastics that can be worked out? 100%. They could do some cap gymnastics to make this work and fit better for the team. And move some of that money around. Put it in a different area. Maybe make it a 4th year and void one of the years, so you're paying him an X amount of money like they did this year on the contract. He's got money the Niners are paying him this year that was voided out. So is that possible? Yeah. I'm not the man to try and figure that out, and that seems like a lot of money to be paying an interior guard, something that Kyle Shanahan just does not value as much as other positions on the O-line.
Yeah, that's the big part. Is Kyle Shanahan really doesn't value interior offensive linemen except for center. Center is the one that he does value.
Accurate.
And you got Alex Mack, carrying that $6.5 million cap hit. I don't know if you're going to pay a guard more than that. That would be a switch from Kyle Shanahan. Does he believe now that Laken Tomlinson needs to be on this roster and you're willing to pay $9 million to do it? It seems like it would be a little bit away from what's normal. I've heard everyone pounding the pavement and just saying, no, pounding the table. This has to be, you have to bring back Laken Tomlinson. I'm sitting here looking at, I've seen the way 49ers have handled this in the past, and I think there's a possibility Laken Tomlinson could be gone. I'm not sure this works. Unless they can get a base salary in this first year that's down to like $5 or $6 million, I don't see them bringing him back. Now, they can, of course, backload some of this and make it work, but this is going to be interesting for the 49ers. I think that Laken Tomlinson, if he really goes out on the open market, Cincinnati and some of those teams are going to throw money at him. This could be potentially the end of Laken Tomlinson. I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, but when you start talking about a $27 million deal,
I think $9 million per year. By the way, that's what they think. Like the number is going to be set at. The Cincinnati Bengals got to feel like they're an offensive line away from dominating a Super Bowl, not just winning a Super Bowl, dominating a Super Bowl. Laken Tomlinson and what he's done. Zach Taylor, similar tree, similar system scheme. Tomlinson, you've got to imagine would fit in it, right? He's got to be sitting there going, oh, we'll pay $11 million. We got the room. We can pay $11 million for the next 3 years for this guy while we figure out what we're going to do long term at the guard position. They'll do it. Why wouldn't they do it? I mean, it would make sense for them to do it, in all honesty.
If Laken Tomlinson's looking to cash out, he's going to get his ability to cash out.
Accurate.
As probably the best guard on the docket, he's probably going to get that money. Now, does he value playing in San Francisco, though?
That's the question.
He's been here. This is a team that traded for him, believed in him. His durability has been special. But it's going to come down to what he wants to do. And if he wants to cash out, this is his opportunity. It's going to be his last long-term contract. Somebody's willing to add extra years, more guaranteed money. The 49ers might not be able to match it.
And he said, right? He said he doesn't know how much longer he's going to be playing in the league. He said he doesn't want to be playing forever. Is 3 years that time frame that he's comfortable with? Or is he sitting there going 4? Or is he sitting there going 2? I don't need 3 years. I need 2. I want to play for another 2, win a Super Bowl, and get out of here.
That's where the cap gymnastics could play in, right? You could sign him to a 4 or 5 year deal and make it so this is really a 2 or 3 year deal, and you can get out of it without a huge hit.
Or he can get out of it, right? And be like, hey, after 2 years, if you win a Super Bowl after 1, he's sitting there going, hey, next year's it. That's it. I want to be done. I want to move on.
I think he's young enough. He could play for 3 or 4 more years.
He easily
feel
could.
Comfortable with it.
He easily could.
Yeah, I think that this is going to be interesting, though, because that numbers, that's the elevated part I was worried about. I mean, this is one of those ones where you are. I mean, if I'm Kyle Shanahan, I'm going to Forster, and I'm like, hey, Banks and Moore, they're ready, right?
Are they ready? Because we might not be able to pay like
Compton and Brunskill, right? They can do good enough, right? Like, I'm really starting to think about that because I'm worried about paying an interior offensive lineman $9 million.
Accurate, Ant. Laken Tomlinson, the only 49er in the top 50, by the way, in that ranking. So only guy in the top 50, that was Laken Tomlinson, sneaking in just under the 50 mark.
And then you have this choice, right? What if you have a choice between Laken Tomlinson and every other free agent that you want to bring back?
Accurate, Ant, because the next guy on the list, DJ Jones, his cap number is up pretty. Oh, it's pretty big also, Ant. It's pretty big also. He was the next guy on that list. DJ Jones, 3 years, $26.25 million. A lot of dollars, and 8.75 of that was per year, and 15.5 of that guaranteed. You and I talked about this pre-show when we looked at the numbers. We're like, can you really pay both of those guys, bring both of those guys back at that money? And you were like, yeah, you could. You could do that. You could pay them both and just offsetting years and whatnot and make that work. But that's most of your cap that you're getting back from trading, ideally, Jimmy Garoppolo. Can you re-sign both those guys to that much money and sign more players? I don't think you can.
Yeah, if you find other ways, right? There's other avenues for them to be able to free up money. They're definitely going to free up other money. They're going to have to. They're going to have to go to some of these other players, which I'm sure we're going to get to on a future episode.
There's probably an episode
about players that can sign contract extensions, restructure, and the guys you can cut. There's going to be avenues for them to approach and attack this, and they're going to have to. Because right now they just don't have the money to bring everyone back. Now, the Jimmy Garoppolo is the big move. You have to move him to be able to bring these guys back. We've seen the 49ers get guys to come back. I mean, last year, Jason Verrett had a multi-year deal on the table, and he came back to San Francisco and bet on himself on a 1-year deal worth a little over $5 million. So I think that there are always opportunities for these guys to come back. What is your value of DJ Jones though? Where do you believe Javon Kinlaw is? You want Kinlaw playing the nose tackle position, or you want him to be playing 3-tech? Is Armstead going to stay inside? Once those questions are answered, then I think you have an idea of who DJ Jones is for your team. I think they would love to bring him back. I think right now DJ Jones has really stepped in and been one of those top guys, and he deserves the $8 million.
100%.
But figuring out how to make sure that money benefits the team and ultimately, gets the best team available, because you have other free agents along the defensive line too that you'd like to bring back. One thing we know about Chris Kasarik and this defense, they like a rotation. They like a lot of guys doing that. And if you're spending too much money on certain guys, you don't have as deep of a defensive line as you would like. And it seems to be that being the strength. 2019, that was the strength of the defense. Once it fell off and that you didn't have that depth, the team struggled a little bit more in the pass, rush area, where this team, it got stronger because they had that depth. They're able to keep these guys fresh. They weren't playing very many snaps. But I think DJ Jones is an important cog. In fact, I think he's more important than Laken Tomlinson. And I know that keeping your quarterback upright is important, but stopping the run and giving your offense more opportunities is really important, especially since you invested two draft picks to potentially your offensive line last year in the draft.
You're not wrong, Ant. You're not wrong there at all whatsoever. This is a tough one. It's truly a tough one with DJ Jones, because I don't want him to go. I think of the guys that are keys in free agency, I feel like him and another guy that we're going to talk about here are two of the, I think, key linchpins of wanting to try and bring back. Because I think if you bring those two guys back, I think everyone else you can get in a fairly good market just because of circumstances, situation. And we'll get to it. I don't want to spoil any of the names coming up on the list, but we'll get to that point. But I think DJ and the other guy in the pass rushing category that we could bring back, and most people know he'd be the key to our success. They are drastically important.
I don't know if the wink was necessary.
It wasn't necessary, but just in case you didn't get it. And for the people listening to traditional podcast platforms, it was a very dramatic wink there to let everybody know what I was trying to get at. The pass rush is your identity. It's what this team has been built around, this idea, right? You don't have to pay a top-level corner necessarily, because you have a pass rush that gets home and can cover up some of the weaknesses. And, as long as your secondary plays good enough, then you're fine. You don't need to spend a bunch of money on corners and safeties. You just need to make sure that your front seven is solid and phenomenal and that you have a rotation. And you continue to pay that much money out for your front seven. I mean, we're talking about a heck of a lot of money that's already invested. I think it was something like, $70 million already put into the front seven with the guys you currently have under contract. You're talking about getting yourself up into that $80-90 million range by paying DJ Jones.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that could help, right, is if you cut D Ford.
Accurate.
You're going to save about $2.5 million at post June 1. That could go to help pay for that. But you're right, there's money all along the front, and they've definitely decided that.
Accurate.
At what point do they change philosophy? I don't know if they will. But do they say, you know what, we could have DJ Jones or we can have Chris Kasarik, who we're paying over $1 million to develop talent, develop another guy, develop Kinlaw, for instance, to step into that role.
And maybe draft somebody?
Or even sign a cornerback or something. I mean, you don't know. I don't think that's a philosophy. I think they want to continue to pay the defensive front and the defensive front seven. That's why Fred Warner has so much money. Eric Armstead, Nick Bosa, of course, is going to get paid in the next year or so. There's a lot of money that is there, but there are other avenues to be able to free up some cap space, to be able to bring these guys back. So I think that this is still something they want to do. They want to bring back DJ Jones. I think they would love to bring back Laken Tomlinson. But when you start looking at the contract potentiality for these two guys, not looking promising.
No, the opposite of promising, Anthony. Yeah. The very much
but
the opposite.
We do know Parag makes things happen. So.
That he does.
Yeah.
He does make things happen. We'll see what gymnastics can be played there and what can happen next. And up next is K'Wan Williams. What did PFF value him at? What are they saying?
K'Wan Williams doesn't have much value, according to PFF. They see him signing a 1-year deal worth $2.5 million, with $2 million being guaranteed. Not a high value for what they consider an aging corner. Somebody that, of course, is pigeonholed to playing the slot, and that is struggling to beat or to stay with guys deep. It seems to be the growing trend that people are not valuing K'Wan Williams, and we know last year it basically came down to Kansas City and San Francisco. Kansas City had the value on K'Wan Williams, but it was a similar value to the 49ers, so he decided to come back. I don't know if there's a bigger deal out there. I mean, we potentially thought the Jets made sense last year because you plug him in there. He's from that area. It made a lot of sense. They didn't bring him in. Miami's not switching the defensive philosophy that they're going to be running there. So K'Wan Williams might not fit there. So landing spots for him may be limited.
On top of the fact that it's a heavy cornerback market and including a lot of slot corners available.
Right. And I mean, so at that value, I'm very interested in bringing back K1 Williams at that value. I think if it was more than that, I'd be concerned. But at the $2.5 million
and $2 million guaranteed,
yeah, like I love it. I'd probably bring him back as well, because the one thing I am concerned is a lot of people have been bringing up Diamador Lenore. Because Diamador Lenore was drafted last year, it doesn't mean he's going to be ready to play the slot. And one of my big reasons for believing that is Cooper Kupp, Tyler Lockett. These are not guys you want Diamador Lenore matching up with on the interior. Now, if the 49ers made a move on the outside, maybe they would be willing to move Emmanuel Moseley to the inside to play the nickel corner spot. Then we're talking. Then I'm okay moving on from K1 Williams. Accurate. But until there's a better option, yeah, bring him back.
Listen, if the Niners have other options at corner too, other free agent guys that they want to bring in that could be the number 2 to Emmanuel Moseley's number 1, or be the number 1 to Emmanuel Moseley's 2, and re-sign another guy that we'll talk about here in a little bit as well to play in the slot behind him. I'll just say it right now, Jason Verrett. Do you think Jason Verrett would be a better option in the slot than K1 Williams?
Yes, but here's the problem. Jason Verrett is a better option than Ambry Thomas on the outside.
Accurate.
Him and Emmanuel,
as long as I'm talking, if Ambry Thomas isn't the number 2 outside.
Well, I think right now he's the number 2 outside.
Well, at this point in time.
Yeah, if they made another free agent move to free up Jason Verrett or Emmanuel Moseley moving interior, I think that's a good situation. Then you do move on from K1 Williams, but I don't know if that's going to happen. The 49ers are not one of those teams that likes to spend a lot of money on the secondary.
Accurate.
And that's why Emmanuel Moseley making $6.5 million is kind of surprising. Maybe there's some sort of a move there. Maybe they're going to restructure as far as sign him to an extension.
Yeah, maybe.
To free up a little bit of money. Signing him to an extension could possibly free up the money to make the moves necessary. But yeah, I mean, K1 Williams at $2.5 million. It sounds enticing to me.
Agreed, and so does Jason Verrett's contract, which PFF had at 1 year, $3 million, 1.25 guaranteed. So basically making the base bare minimum with escalators in performance and probably active roster playing bonuses to get that number up to $3 million. 1 year, $3 million for Jason Verrett, and only 1.25 guaranteed. Meaning if he gets hurt, you're on the hook for the bare minimum. That's a good deal.
Yeah, I mean, you take a look at his knee, you see where he's at in his recovery. If you believe that he's ready to go for that kind of money, I think you're willing to take a shot. I mean, the one thing is limiting risk, and $1.25 million is definitely limiting risk. You don't ever want to have money that's dead, but the potential of what Jason Verrett could do for your roster is far outweighs the potential of losing $1.25 million against your cap. So I think you take a chance at that moment. Emmanuel Moseley, Jason Verrett, Ambry Thomas, I think you're feeling good. If you bring back K1 Williams as well, you're going into the same boat you were last year, except you have a further along Ambry Thomas and hopefully a healthy Jason Verrett. But Emmanuel Moseley just went through one of his good years. I think you're feeling pretty good about the cornerback room beyond making any other moves, including draft picks or another potential free agent.
Very much the case, Ant. Very accurate indeed. It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting what they do with those two guys at those positions, because K1 at 1 year, $2.5 million, $2 million guaranteed. It isn't a whole heck of a lot of a cap hit. It's very enticing. And Jason Verrett at 1 year, $3 million with 1.25 guaranteed is also just as enticing. Shockingly, Ant, 2 very cheap contracts. You get 2 guys who have played very well in your system for a year and $5 million between the 2 of them. I think everyone would want to sign up for that.
Yeah, potentially, right? Your starting secondary at the cornerback position, including the nickel corner, would be what, around $11 million? Yeah,
that's not bad.
That's a pretty good time to go to town. You know, I mean, you're feeling pretty good about yourself.
Well, it allows you to spend your money elsewhere,
which they love to do in the front seven.
You know, that's right.
It's something they have to do, and that might leave them the possibility to bring back DJ Jones or Laken Tomlinson.
That's very true. And Cutbacker, you may be sitting here going, well, you're not talking about guys we want you to talk about. Why don't you talk about the Arden Keys, the World Jaquisky Tarts, the Raheem Mosterts, the Tom Comptons, the Daniel Brunskills? I get it. You want us to talk about those things, potentially. Number 1, Daniel Brunskill wouldn't be on that list because he's a restricted free agent.
Correct.
But number 2, the order that we're going in right now is how PFF has this ranked out.
Ranked, yeah.
So you may be sitting there going, whoa. They have K1 and Jason Verrett ranked ahead of Arden Key. Well, get ready to have your mind blown because they had Maurice Hurst listed above Arden Key, Ant. Maurice Hurst was the next guy on the list at 1 year, $1.5 million. That's the contract, that's the base, that's the guaranteed. I was stunned when I saw Maurice Hurst as the next name on this list. I was absolutely stunned by it. Over Arden Key, who came very like 2 spots after that. 1 year, $1.5 million is nice, but I don't think either one of us believes that this guy would be coming back even on that contract.
I think 1 year, 1.5.
You think maybe?
Maybe. It depends on what happens with Kentavious Street, what happens with DJ Jones. You might be
Willis also.
Yeah, you're looking at possible options. This is interior defensive line.
That's true.
And he's a 3 tech who's very good against the pass. If Kinlaw is making the move, if DJ Jones leaves and Kinlaw is making the move to nose tackle, and he's going to be playing along Armstead, you're going to want to have, I know you have Kevin Givens, but you're going to want to have another guy that can play there. Having a cheap option like Maurice Hurst, somebody that's familiar with what Chris Kasarik does, that really was hampered by injury. So you take an opportunity, you're basically paying him the same amount you paid him last year to bring him back. I think in that scenario, it makes sense. Where it doesn't make sense is if you are bringing back DJ Jones and Kinlaw and you're bringing back Kevin Givens, then it doesn't make sense for Maurice Hurst because he's not as good against the run. That's not something he does. Kentavious Street's better against the run, but Maurice Hurst is tremendously better against the pass than Kentavious Street. His agility and stuff is through the roof, and his aggressiveness. I just don't know. I think DJ Jones will be the one that has to fall.
I think he's the priority. If between the two of them, he's the priority.
But if DJ Jones leaves right away, Kinlaw becomes the starting nose tackle, and I think they would just roll with that. Even though he's not a nose tackle. He's a guy that should be a 3 tech. But I think moving Armstead inside needs to stick, and as long as that is sticking, then you need Kinlaw to play the nose tackle. That's what gets you the best possible defensive line with the guys you have available.
Agreed with you there, and you have to basically create your roster based on the pieces you have. If DJ Jones happens to move on, and you're not able to re-sign him. Then yeah, Maurice Hurst would make sense at $1.5 million. That's not that much. I was kind of surprised to see that number. I thought there might be a little bit of a market, maybe a couple million that would end up costing.
It's got to be because of injury.
It has to be.
Yeah,
it has to be. Well, and the lack of production in Oakland. Well, it was Oakland at the time. Now Vegas.
Vegas, yeah. I think there's a lack of production, but I don't think there's a lack of talent.
Agreed with you there.
We saw him practicing at training camp. We saw him practicing at the open practice.
Destroying.
Preseason, he looked good, and poor Aaron Banks had to suffer through that open practice.
If y'all think Daniel Brunskill is the daddy to Aaron Donald, Maurice Hurst was the daddy on that field that day for Aaron Banks.
Yeah, lateral movement from Aaron Banks that day was not good, and Hurst was the perfect matchup to exploit his weaknesses. 100%. And he did in a big way.
100%.
That is also the same day that Colton McKivitz got moved from right tackle to left guard, and Tom Compton to right tackle.
And Tom Compton started his ascendance as the man that we didn't think he would ever be. And next up, though, was Arden Key after that. And it was 2 years, $12.5 million from PFF, $6.25 million per year, $6.25 guaranteed, meaning the first half of the contract is guaranteed. Everything else after that is not guaranteed. That's not necessarily a bad deal. What are you thinking?
It's going to come down to what they can work out with D Ford as far as, if they move off him. Also, what they do with Samson Ebukam, because Ebukam, is going to go into the last year of his contract. He has a decent cap hit. So would they extend him? I don't know.
Possibly.
But I think they're going to have to find ways to free up money. I think they would love to bring back Arden Key, but he's a rotational pass rusher. This is a guy that you asked to win on one-on-one situations. When you had Armstead and Nick Bosa on one side, it freed up Arden Key and Samson Ebukam to go one-on-one, and they needed to win, and they did. Those two guys played big, so I think they would like to bring them back. They like the rotation of him coming in on obvious pass downs. He wasn't asked to play the run, and he also wasn't asked to play the traditional wide 9 defensive end very much. In obvious pass downs, they moved him inside, and that's where the real luxury of having him on the team was huge, because then you did have some sort of a NASCAR package where everyone in at that one time was a good pass rusher. That's something I think they would like to do, because they really believe on 3rd down, 4th down, it's closing time. You need that defensive line to get after it. But can they afford to bring him back? The value, you would say so, because he didn't play that many snaps, and yet he had great production. But that was only after they moved him to the interior. Can you imagine an entire season where they had a defined role for him? He could possibly put up double-digit sacks for the 49ers, and in that case, he's worth the $6.25 million 100%. The question is, will he come back? We know he loves Chris Kasarik. He loves the 49ers organization. He liked playing for them. But he's also a guy that has needs. He needs money. And if somebody's going to offer you 6.25 and the Niners are only going to offer you $4 million, you might go ahead and take that money and run.
You could. You very well could. This is the problem with Arden Key. He's a young guy who's just now starting to show what maybe his role is, right? What his defined role could be for a team. And because now it's been seen, it's been shown, and you saw what it was in less than half of a year of a season in which he almost put up double-digit sack numbers, teams have to be salivating at the opportunity of getting this guy in similar positions on 3rd down. But the issue is a team has to be able to put him in those situations, meaning you have to have those bona fide sort of edge rushers or guys there that are so dominant that it frees him up for those one-on-one situations for him to be able to win. How many teams can honestly say they have that?
I don't know. And what was up? Well, this is what I would do if I was Chris Cesaric. I would call Arden. Hey, Arden, you know how you're going to get $6.25 million on the open market? I'll get you 10 if you come back. Play for me for 2 more years. I'll get you $10 million a year because your sack numbers will go double digits, and then everyone's going to want to pay you to be a premier pass rusher. That's the approach the 49ers need to take. Look what you did in 1 year. Imagine what you could do in 2 or 3 years.
2 or 3 more years, what you could get paid at that time, and you're still going to be a guy who's in his coming into his late 20s.
Yeah,
I mean, you'll be getting that 27, 28-year-old range. You still got 4 or 5 more years of prime left in you, kid. Someone's going to be willing to pay you 5 years and $15 million a year to rush the passer.
Yeah, and you had Charles Omenihu go on Twitter and say, look at his stats. So what Omenihu did in his time with the Niners. Imagine what he'll do in a full offseason, a full season with the 49ers.
Charles Omenihu just gets me more and more excited each and every day. And
yeah,
this guy's excited to be a 49er, and I'm excited that he's a 49er.
And excited to have his own Netflix account.
Accurate.
Well done, Charles Omenihu.
Hey. It's coming so far, Ant. So far. Look at this guy. Happy for you, man. Happy for you. Up next, Jaquisky Tart. This number floored me, Ant. When I read this number, I was floored. I could not believe it at all whatsoever. Jaquisky Tart. PFF. I can't even get the words out. Ant, say it. What is it? What is the value? I can't wrap my head around this.
Jaquisky Tart, they have 2 years, $5 million, $2.5 million per season, $3.25 million guaranteed.
What? You know what the best part is? In their analysis, too, they said Jaquisky Tart has been a star for his role with the 49ers and what he's been asked to do. You're going to tell me that another team couldn't find a way to replicate that?
I think people worry about Jaquisky Tart in coverage. I mean, that is something you saw in the playoffs.
Okay.
There's a little bit of a concern there. I know he was nursing an injury, and that's the other thing, is the injury concern.
The injury makes sense. Injury makes sense. $2.5 million a year, only 3.25 of which is guaranteed.
If I'm the Niners, I'm offering this every day of the week.
Yes.
Every day of the week, I'm signing Jaquisky Tart to this deal.
To a 2-year, $5 million deal with 3.25 guaranteed?
Even though we know we have Tarvarius Moore coming back, he's coming off an Achilles.
Basically free.
Even though we have Talanoa Hufanga coming back, we know he has struggles in the coverage game. He does. I like this guy as spot things. This is what we talked about even when he was drafted. Using him in spot roles is the best situation for the 49ers. I don't think he's ready to take over as the starting safety.
Not yet.
I don't know if he'll ever get there. The one thing I'll say, though, is Tart and Jimmy Ward playing together is something special.
That's beautiful.
They do good things together, and the run fits. Jimmy Ward and Jaquisky Tart playing against the run, they're part of the reason the 49ers run defense was so good. If you can afford to get Jaquisky Tart back, I think you do it, and then you let him go compete with Tarvarius Moore for that starting job, and the best player wins. And if it's Tart, great. If not, you have a very serviceable safety, and at that amount of money, you're not hurting. And we know Moore's been hurt, Jimmy Ward's been hurt, Tart's been hurt. You need to make sure you insulate yourself. I think everyone would feel comfortable with that safety group. If you want to go ahead and draft someone as well, draft someone as well. I've seen everyone is getting high on some of these safeties. Once again, though, are the 49ers really going to draft a safety high? They haven't proven it yet. So I think that Tart at that number, yeah, I'm bringing him back.
I agree with you there. That 2-year, $5 million floored me, man. I could not believe the number. I was like, okay, so $5 million guaranteed, 2.5 per year, and they were like, oh, 3.25 guaranteed. It's like, oh, what?
Yeah, and you could easily make it a minimum contract this year. His base salary, could be $1.25 million this year.
1.25 with escalators, and then next year guarantee him a little bit more money, or it could be the inverse. You can guarantee him a little bit more this year, and the next year's contract is the one where maybe things start becoming in question because you may be able to move forward with a Talanoa Hufanga. Maybe Tarvarius Moore shows you something this year that goes, this could be the future safety for this organization. There are so many options and ways that the Niners could go about dealing with that contract. And the best part is at 2 years, $5 million, it's not that much money that you're playing around with.
No, it's not. And I think you could easily make this the equivalent of 2 $1.5 million years with the rest of the money not guaranteed. And so you're not on the hook for all of it.
Accurate.
This is something Parag salivates over. I guarantee they've already figured out Jaquisky Tart's number. And they won't move off of it. They'll offer him that amount. But there's a very saturated safety market. So there's not going to be a lot of opportunities for him. And I think he knows that in San Francisco, he has the potential to start. Some other places he won't. So he might look at it and be like, you know what? I like it there. I like playing with Jimmy Ward. I feel comfortable with this coaching staff, with D'Amico Ryans. Yeah, I want to come back. And I don't honestly think he's taking a hometown discount. I think this is just what his market value is.
Fair enough, Ant. Fair enough. Crazy to think that's what it would be.
It's the value that we put on someone compared to the value that maybe the league does. Because
Correct.
the league looks at overall stats. We see play in and play out what Jaquisky Tart means to this
scheme
team.
fit as well.
And the hustle.
That's true.
I mean, think about that. Green Bay game, if he doesn't run that guy down,
You lose that football game.
you lose the game. There are things that Jaquisky Tart did for this team that were huge. And I know he's going to take heat for not getting to Cooper
interception.
not getting to Cooper Kupp in the back of the end zone.
True.
There's other reasons why he wasn't where he should have been, and part of it's because Ambry Thomas didn't sag. But those are the looks that's going to be on Tart. But I think Tart is above average safety in this league, and I think the 49ers would be very happy to have him back.
Especially for $2.5 million a year.
Oh yeah, every day of the week.
I'll take that all day.
Those are the kind of numbers I like seeing. The ones I don't like seeing is DJ Jones and like
No, DJ Jones is $8.75 million a year.
Even though they deserve it.
100% deserve it.
They deserve it. I don't
want people to realize that.
No,
It's the same thing I tweeted out to the Miami Dolphins. At Miami, please screw this up when it came to Mike McDaniels. Please find a way to botch this. They did. They did the right thing.
And then they took the first shot, getting River Craycraft. Shot across the bow. I mean, that just put the 49ers on notice. You better watch all your former players. Yeah. Josh Rosen. Get ready.
Mike McDaniels did that as I'm coming for you guys. I'm coming for all your players.
No,
First up, River Craycraft.
It's just smart. Bring River Craycraft in. He understands the system. I'm sure Wes Welker's high on him. But what he can add to your special teams, bring him in on your 90-man roster. That makes sense to me.
It does make sense.
You ultimately put him in the wide receiver room, and he knows what's going on, right? He already knows the offense.
He's not going to struggle to adapt over there.
He's going to struggle to make the team.
He's going to struggle to make the team, but he's not going to struggle to adapt.
And you're telling me River Craycraft and his wonderful significant other aren't going to enjoy Florida?
They're going to love Florida.
Yeah, I just got a lot cheaper.
I know. I like Florida. Hi, Florida.
No state taxes sounds wonderful for River Craycraft and possible practice squad.
Gets to keep all of that.
Gets to keep a lot more money than he does playing for the Niners practice squad.
That's accurate. Yeah, that is very accurate, Ant. Up next was Tom Compton. 1 year, $1.75 million is what PFF had it graded at. I would say, yeah, he's coming back for that. I mean, the best part is they put in this thing. Strengths, elite run blocker. Weaknesses was speed and age.
Yeah, I think you bring him back. He's got the versatility to play guard and tackle.
Accurate.
And play tackle. Do I think that he hurt them a little bit in the playoff run? Yes.
Yes.
I think Mike McGlinchey would have been a better option in those situations. He's a better pass blocker. But as a serviceable backup, I would love Tom Compton to come back. I would even be in consideration for him to start at guard in the right situations.
True.
From what he showed last year. He's the guard equivalent to Mike McGlinchey. He really is.
True.
You know which scenarios he's going to struggle in. You know the one he's going to do well in. And that's why you have to take advantage of the run game. And if you do, he's going to be successful. And if not, but this is cheap. And you have Chris Forrester, who's coached him in a couple locations. Kyle Shanahan, who helped draft him. I think you feel good about Tom Compton coming back for 1 year at $1.75 million.
That's a nice depth piece there.
It is. I just
if you need to rely on him, you can.
Yeah.
And he can perform.
I think that's why him, Daniel Brunskill, some of those guys are good options. The question is, what tender are they going to put on Daniel Brunskill? If they put a second-round tender, that ensures they're going to keep him, but then they're going to pay him over $4 million.
I don't think you're going to do that.
I don't think they're going to do that.
You think third-round tender?
I think there could be a tender, maybe like a fourth-round tender or something like that.
Okay.
But we'll see. I don't know. I don't even know what they're going to... I figure if I had to guess, they actually get him under contract before free agency hits. And they take care of Brunskill. I don't think it'll be a lot of money. For a guy who just made, what is it, like $785,000.
I can see 1.5.
Yeah. Exactly. The similar contract to Tom Compton, and that might be the way to roll. You bring in those guys, you have the two young cats, and you
see what you have to do.
You might move on from Lake and Tomlinson if the number's not right.
It's very true, or you can go out and draft a guy. 49ers fans are sick of Mike McGlinchey. I keep hearing this all the time. Well, I've found Nega Glinchey in this year's draft, Ant. Nega Glinchey, elite pass blocker, elite. Oh boy, is he in the run game, boy? He is suspect. I literally have in my notes. Not even comparison, just notes on him. Nega Glinchey. He is the exact opposite of what Mike McGlinchey is. Everything that you love and hate about Mike McGlinchey, you'll love and hate about this draft prospect when we get to it.
If you are not an elite run blocker, you don't fit with the San Francisco 49ers.
That's the best part is I put it in my notes. It's like, I don't think there's any way this guy the Niners would ever target him. There's no way.
I think that's the interesting part about Jalen Moore. I think they see the potential for him to develop as an elite run blocker, but that's not who he is.
No.
Where Aaron Banks was an elite run blocker, he just struggled in the pass game, which kind of what happens with 49ers offensive linemen.
Oh, shocking.
Yeah, they got some development there to go, but I don't know how this thing's going to shake out, but I don't think they're going to be willing to go over $9 million for Laken Tomlinson for sure.
I don't think
if
so.
Somebody starts hitting 10, 11, it's going to be, you know what, we're very appreciative.
Thank you for everything. Laken.
Yeah, but there's no way we can meet that number.
I agree with you there. I don't think there's any way it's going to happen, Ant. But speaking of things that will never happen, a lot of people said after Raheem Mostert's injury week 1, Ant, never going to happen. Goodbye. See you later, Raheem Mostert. We found RB1 Elijah Mitchell. And then PFF put him in their top 200, Ant, and labeled him as a 1-year, $1.75 million contract with $1.25 guaranteed. Not Lincoln, but Raheem has since gone on to talk to certain people in the 49ers media, and they've come out and said that Raheem wants to be in San Francisco for 1 year, $1.75 million and $1.25 guaranteed. Sign me up.
Yeah, it's going to be more than that.
I agree with you.
Raheem Mostert wants to come back. He told Matt Mayoko he wanted to come back. And his agent has come out now and said the 49ers and them have been, they've reached out about a contract. This is a good sign. They don't want him to hit the open market. They want to make sure they bring him back. The only way to do that is make sure Miami doesn't have a chance to make a pitch.
Agreed.
Because he would definitely revolutionize, McDaniel's offense there because he has that explosive speed. I don't think people outside the organization realize how important Raheem Mostert is to this offense. Maurice Jones-Drew was talking about Mostert and Elijah Mitchell, and he said it would be an absolute dynamite 1-2 punch. He could see them both splitting 15 carries apiece. We're talking about Maurice Jones-Drew, who looked at Elijah Mitchell in the draft and had him as one of his top running backs in the draft last year. So he sees the value in it. He talks about how hard it is to run in Kyle Shanahan's system and that it takes a certain type of patience, a certain type of giddy-up, and you need these two guys. These guys are the 1-2 punch you need, especially with all the question marks surrounding Trey Sermon. We thought eventually he would be ready to go. We don't know that yet. He wasn't even active in the playoffs. He was inactive for those games. So I think that this is a necessary move for the 49ers. I'd be willing to pay, $4 million plus for Raheem Mostert, especially if some of the money wasn't in incentives.
Oh, yeah. If it was in incentives, 100%.
I think a lower base salary, maybe a little bit more than this, like a couple million, with incentives that could push it to 5 if he reached the number of carries, number of yards, number of touchdowns. I'd be all for that.
If I'm good with Jason Verrett at $3 million with a 1.25 guarantee, then I would be good at about $2.5-3 million for Raheem Mostert.
I think Raheem Mostert is actually more dynamic than
100%.
I think he's more needed for the offense.
100%.
Yeah.
I think if you look at the two, like which guy's more important? Raheem Mostert is more important.
Yeah, Raheem Mostert is, dynamic. That will also free up Deebo Samuel to not have to do as many wide back things. But when you do him, he's fresher. We've seen him at the end of these games. Dallas, Green Bay. The guy's just given everything he's got. He can't carry on that sort of a load, and Raheem Mostert will take that pressure off.
Kyle Shanahan's systems and running games thrive with having a rotation of 3 guys. When you have 3 guys that you can rely on, you're good. And if those 3 guys going into next year are wide back Deebo Samuel, Elijah Mitchell, and Raheem Mostert, I am extremely excited for what that 3 back rotation is going to look like.
I have Deebo Samuel being the 4th guy because I have another guy them potentially signing.
Oh, is it a certain guy that was on their list, their top 200 as well?
I don't know.
Was he also a wide back?
No, he's not a wide back.
Oh, he's just another running back.
Yes.
Oh my goodness gracious. Well, you're not going to want to miss all the free agent content that's coming out next week. We got Combine coming up. We got a lot of things happening during that week, but you're going to have a lot of free agency stuff as well. Talking about potential free agents the Niners could target that aren't 49ers or weren't 49ers last year. Maybe at some point in time they were a 49er, but they're not anymore. And maybe they could be coming back into the fold, or maybe it's just a whole new name and face entirely. And if you don't want to miss on any of that, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell. That way you don't miss any of those videos, any of those episodes. And also, while you're down there liking and subscribing and becoming the newest member of the Cutback crew, and who knows, maybe becoming a channel member like all of those wonderful people down there, BV, Matt, David, Shooter. If you're becoming one of those channel members as well, you're going to get additional content as well. You're not going to hate on any of that, but you also should comment. Let us know what you think about all of these free agent values. Was anyone overvalued by PFF? Was anyone undervalued by PFF? And do the guys we think we could be moving on for, do you want to make a pitch for why we're wrong and why they should be staying? If so, comment down below.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of people that believe you have to bring Laken Tomlinson back at any level. You just have to make sure this guy comes back, and maybe they're right. I don't know. I just think that at some point you just can't pay more than the value. I think Laken Tomlinson's a great player. He's very durable. He shows up every day. Daniel Brunskill, very durable, shows up every day.
Lincoln operates at a pretty high level.
But you're not going to pay these guys more than what they're worth. And unfortunately, some of these teams are going to go out there and overspend because they need that help. Cincinnati and Miami for sure are teams that need to rebuild their offensive line. So that's where I worry about it. I also worry about the Jets a little bit, possibly for Laken Tomlinson. So I think there's going to be avenues for these guys to make that money. And the 49ers have to decide, what if do I bring back Laken Tomlinson at $9 million, or do I bring back 4 of these other guys at low amounts, plus a running back that I can get in the bargain basement? There's decisions that you have to make, and you have to kind of weigh those things out. That's why the Niners are going to set a number. This is what John Lynch and Parag do. They sit there, they set a number. If that number gets met, they bring the player back. If not, they don't. So we're going to see what that number ultimately is, but I don't think it's $9 million. I could be wrong, but I don't think it's $9 million.
I agree with you. I don't think it's $9 million. I don't think it's in any world based on the teams that need help and how much cap space they have that it ends up staying at $9 million. I think it goes way above that. It could go into the $12 million range, which is way too much money to pay for Laken Tomlinson. The Niners just aren't going to do that at that position. But if you think we're wrong and you got a case, make it down below. Let's have a conversation about this, because free agency is, man, it's just getting started. It is around the corner in terms of when they can sign. March 16th, officially the first day where guys can be signed to contracts. They can start negotiating on the 14th, that Monday. So all leading up to that.
Non-tampering period.
Period. Silly stuff.
It's amazing how people sign like a minute into it. It's like, how do you guys get the language figured out?
How do you guys get the language? Oh, it's all done already. That's crazy. Man. How did that happen?
Yeah.
So fast. We'll see what happens, though, Cutback Crew. We'll see. We're excited to have these conversations with you. We'll catch you on the next one. And until that time, stay safe.
Remember, the right way
is always the 49ers way.